The rain hammered against the windows of Mark's modest suburban home in suburban Seattle, Washington, like a relentless accusation. It was one of those Pacific Northwest storms that blurred the line between day and night, turning the world into a gray haze. Mark Thompson, 35, stood frozen in his kitchen, a mug of cold coffee slipping from his fingers and shattering on the tile floor. Shards scattered like his scattered thoughts, but he didn't move. Across the narrow strip of grass separating their houses, his 30-year-old neighbor, Emily Hayes, had just caught him staring, again. But this time, she hadn't pulled the curtains or turned away in disgust. Instead, she'd opened her window, leaned out with a mischievous smile, and called out over the downpour, "If you want to look, just ask." And just like that, the single dad who thought he'd buried his heart with his wife 3 years ago felt the world tilt on its axis. Mark's life hadn't always been this quiet storm of isolation. 5 years ago, he'd been the picture of suburban bliss, married to Sarah, his high school sweetheart, with a newborn daughter named Lily. They lived in this same cozy 2-bedroom ranch-style house in a quiet neighborhood where kids rode bikes until dusk and neighbors waved over picket fences. Sarah was a teacher, full of life and laughter, the kind of woman who turned grocery shopping into an adventure. But cancer doesn't care about perfect lives. It came fast, a stage 4 diagnosis that stole her in 6 months, leaving Mark with a 1-year-old and a void that no amount of therapy or support groups could fill. Now, Lily was 4, a whirlwind of curls and questions, starting preschool and demanding stories about her mom every night. Mark worked from home as a graphic designer, freelancing for tech startups in the city, jobs that let him be there for drop-offs and pickups but left him exhausted and alone once Lily was asleep. The neighbors were kind enough, potlucks, playdates, the occasional, "How you holding up?" But Mark kept his distance, building walls out of grief and guilt. Why move on when Sarah's memory still echoed in every room? Emily moved in next door 6 months ago, turning the old Mrs. Wilkins' house into something vibrant. She was a freelance photographer, 30, with a laugh that carried over the fence and a garden that bloomed even in the rain. Mark first noticed her while mowing the lawn, her red hair tied back, humming as she planted tulips. She waved, introduced herself with a firm handshake and a joke about Seattle's eternal drizzle. "I'm Emily. If you need sugar or a sanity check, I'm your girl." Mark mumbled something polite, but inside, he panicked. She was beautiful, confident, everything he wasn't ready for. The glances started innocently. One evening, as he washed dishes, he looked out and saw her in her living room, dancing to music he couldn't hear, her silhouette graceful against the lamplight. It wasn't leering, it was longing. For connection, for life beyond his routine. But guilt gnawed at him. Sarah's photo on the fridge seemed to judge. He'd look away, but the next night, there she'd be, reading on her couch or cooking with flair. Emily's house was alive, a stark contrast to his own quiet tomb. That rainy afternoon, Lily was napping after a morning at the park, muddied boots by the door. Mark was at the sink, rinsing lunch plates, when his eyes drifted again. Emily was in her kitchen, wearing a tank top and shorts, chopping vegetables with rhythmic precision. She looked up, met his gaze through the windows, and instead of flinching, she grinned. Wiping her hands on a towel, she slid her window open. The wind carried her words, "If you want to look, just ask." Mark froze, heart pounding, face burning. The mug slipped, crashing. He wanted the floor to swallow him. Emily laughed, not mockingly, but warmly. "Hey, neighbor, you okay over there? Looks like you saw a ghost." She didn't close the window, she waited. Mark stammered, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. God, this is embarrassing." He bent to pick up the shards, cutting his finger in the process. Blood mixed with coffee on the floor. From her window, Emily's voice softened. "Hold on, I'll come over. Don't move, you'll make it worse." Minutes later, she was at his door, umbrella in hand, rain dripping from her ponytail. Mark let her in, apologizing profusely. She waved it off, grabbing paper towels and kneeling to help clean. "Relax, Mark, it's not like I haven't noticed you noticing. Windows are two-way streets, you know." Her eyes twinkled, but there was kindness there, not judgment. They sat at his kitchen table, her with a band-aid from his first aid kit on his finger. Lily stirred in the other room, but didn't wake. Mark confessed, haltingly, about Sarah, about the loneliness that made him steal glances at her life like a thief. "I wasn't perving or anything. It's just, your house looks happy. Mine feels stuck." Emily listened, her own story spilling out in return. She was divorced 2 years ago, from a man who prioritized his career over everything. I moved here for a fresh start. Photography's my escape, capturing moments that matter. But yeah, it's lonely sometimes. I saw you with Lily, you're a good dad. That's rare. That conversation was the hook that pulled Mark from his isolation. Over the next weeks, their interactions grew. Emily started inviting them over for dinner, simple things like pasta and salads from her garden. Lily adored her, calling her Aunt Em, after the first playdate where Emily taught her to make fairy houses from sticks and leaves. Mark found himself opening up, about the nights he cried after Lily's bedtime stories, about the guilt of wanting more than memories. But challenges loomed. Mark's in-laws, Sarah's parents, visited from Portland one weekend. They were supportive but traditional, eyeing Emily suspiciously when she waved from her yard. "Who's that?" his mother-in-law asked, tone laced with concern. Mark downplayed it, just the neighbor, but inside, doubt crept in. Was he betraying Sarah? Lily's innocent questions didn't help. "Daddy, is Aunt Em like Mommy?" Emily had her own demons. Her ex, Jason, showed up unannounced one evening, begging for reconciliation. He was a slick salesman from her old life in Chicago, now relocated to Seattle for work. "I miss you, Em. We can make it work." Mark saw them arguing on her porch from his window, the irony wasn't lost on him. He froze again, jealousy twisting his gut. When Emily came over later, tears in her eyes, she admitted, "He's persistent. But he's not what I want anymore. I want real, Mark. Not games." Their first real date was a turning point. Mark arranged a babysitter, his sister from Tacoma, and took Emily to a cozy cafe in downtown Seattle, overlooking Puget Sound. The fairy lights danced on the water as they talked for hours. He shared Sarah's last words, "Promise me you'll live, Mark." "For Lily, for you." Emily opened up about her infertility diagnosis during her marriage, the pain that ended it. Jason couldn't handle it, said kids weren't a deal breaker, but they were. Mark held her hand, whispering, "Lily would love a bonus mom. If that's ever, you know." But life threw curveballs. Lily got sick, a bad flu that landed her in the ER with a high fever. Mark panicked, flashbacks to Sarah's hospital stays haunting him. Emily was there, driving them, holding Lily's hand while doctors checked her. "She's tough, like her dad," Emily said, calming him. It was just dehydration, but the scare bonded them deeper. Then came the big challenge. Mark's grief group therapist suggested he let go by donating Sarah's clothes. He boxed them up but couldn't drive to Goodwill. Emily offered to go with him. On the way, he broke down in the car, sobbing. "What if I forget her?" Emily pulled over, hugging him. "You won't. Loving again doesn't erase the past, it honors it." They donated the boxes, and on the drive back, Mark felt lighter, like the rain had finally cleared. Their relationship blossomed slowly, respectfully. Picnics at Discovery Park, where Lily chased seagulls and Mark stole kisses from Emily. A weekend trip to the Olympic Peninsula, hiking rainforests and sharing tents under starry skies. Emily's photography captured it all. Candid shots of Mark laughing, Lily's joy, moments that healed. But Jason wouldn't fade. He texted Emily relentlessly, then showed up at her door one night while Mark was over. "Who's this guy?" Jason sneered, eyeing Mark. Words escalated. Jason accused Emily of rebounding. Mark stepped in, calm but firm. "She's moved on. Respect that." Jason left, but not before hurling insults that reopened Emily's wounds. That night, she confessed her fears. "What if I'm not enough? No kids of my own." Mark knelt, taking her hands. "You are enough. For me, for Lily. We're a family because of who we are, not what we lack." They talked until dawn, resolving to block Jason, to build boundaries. The resolution came on Sarah's anniversary. Mark visited her grave with Lily and Emily. Lily placed flowers, saying, "Mommy, meet Aunt Em. She's nice." Mark felt peace, whispering thanks to Sarah for the life they'd had, and permission for the one ahead. That evening, back home, he proposed, not with a ring, but a promise. "Emily, if you want this life with us, just ask." She laughed through tears. "I do." Years blurred into happiness. Mark and Emily married in a small backyard ceremony, neighbors cheering. Lily grew, calling Emily, Mom, naturally. They faced more challenges. Mark's job layoffs during a tech downturn, Emily's photography business struggling, but they tackled them together, with therapy, communication, and love. Mark started a support group for single parents, inspired by his journey. Emily's photos became a book, Second Glances, Stories of Unexpected Love. In the end, as Mark watched Emily and Lily dance in the kitchen, much like he'd first seen her, he realized the inspiring truth: life doesn't end with loss, it evolves when we dare to look, to ask, to connect. Freezing in fear is human, but thawing into vulnerability, that's where the real story begins. And in the rainy suburbs of Seattle, theirs was just getting started.